Hello and welcome to this training on employment law. Today we're going to discuss what employment law is. We're going to start with the basics and then we'll get into some of these laws and how they apply to us. Now, keep in mind, we do not expect you to be an expert on these laws. However, we need at least a basic understanding of the implications and how they apply to us. Also, it is very important that you understand how you can help us protect the company. We will discuss the OSH Act, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We'll talk about FMLA and the ADA. So let's talk about what is employment law. In essence, as an employer, we are responsible for following certain state and federal laws and keeping in mind that these laws protect the team members and us as a company. So let's start by looking at the safety arena and how this employment law can impact us through the OSH Act. On December 29th of 1970, President Richard Nixon signed this act into law simply because of the number of tragedies and injuries happening at many workplaces. This was a way to start setting up some minimum parameters for how employers could provide a safe work environment given the poor working conditions at that time. Some of the things that we want you to keep in mind are that we do have some responsibilities as it pertains to the OSHA Act. We need to ensure that we're following all the relevant OSHA safety and health standards, and our safety department can help us with that. And as we continue to identify any safety and health hazards, keep in mind that this is not just about identifying, but we need to make sure that we put things in place to correct these hazards or concerns. For example, suppose there are any chemical hazards that our team members are exposed to. In that case, we want to make sure that we provide adequate training and ensure that we have proper labeling on secondary containers. Another potential situation we want to keep in mind is if there is a workplace fatality, we must notify OSHA within 8 hours of the incident or within 24 hours of any work-related inpatient hospitalization, amputation, or loss of an eye. So as you can see, there's a phone number on this slide. But what we want you to do is, should anything like this happen, right, at our workplace, we need to make sure that the safety manager is informed right away, and then from there, the safety manager will take the appropriate steps. Remember, your team members will need certain personal protective equipment as well. These protective equipment, if it's required for their jobs, will be provided to the team members at no cost. One of our responsibilities is to ensure that we keep accurate records of work-related injuries and illnesses. So if a team member suffers a work-related injury, we want to ensure that you bring up the team member right away so that we can take care of them. Also, when we talk about illnesses, keep in mind that we're not talking about something like the flu or anything like that. One example of illnesses could be those musculoskeletal diseases, which can happen due to repetitive motion. And another one of our responsibilities, of course, is if there are any OSHA citations, we want to make sure we post those. And please do not retaliate against any worker for using their rights under this law. Some team members may have concerns or complaints, and we want to ensure that we address those appropriate. So be mindful that the OSH Act also establishes employee rights as part of this act. So as we consider the employee rights, team members need to be able to work under conditions that do not pose a risk or serious harm. They must receive information and training, and we must provide that training in a language that they can understand, whether that is about chemicals and other potential hazards, methods to prevent harm, and the OSHA standards that apply to the workplace. Let's suppose that somebody wants to review the work-related injuries or illnesses and what's on our records. In that case, we can also give them access to some of that information. And they have the right to get copies of the test results that have been done to find and measure hazards in the workplace. Let's say, for example, we're taking readings of noise levels and a team member wants to see those results. We need to be able to give them access if we have not already discussed them with them. They have the right also to file a complaint with OSHA, and they can ask them to come in to the facility and inspect the workplace. Lastly, they should exercise their rights under the law without retaliation. So if somebody submits a complaint or anything like that, We will not be taking any retaliatory action. Again, this is about taking care of our workers. Next up, let's discuss the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is basically a provision entrusted by the United States which prohibits workplace discrimination. Keep in mind, this is pretty much in every employment circumstances, so we're not going to discriminate. This policy prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, gender, pregnancy, or even national origin. Now, how can you help us protect the company? Well, we want to make sure that you're making decisions without focusing on these protected categories. We want you to focus on the situation, and any concerns should be referred to HR. Please allow us to go ahead and handle that situation. If you know of any potential discriminations, we want you to go ahead and disclose it immediately. This way we can go ahead and conduct an investigation. We also want you to be mindful of the potential impacts of violations of this act. For example, you could have a loss of trust with your employees, the company reputation could be impacted, and then of course there is the potential for litigation with fines of up to $200,000, which if you ask me is pretty significant. Next, let's talk about FMLA. FMLA is the Family Medical Leave Act. So what is this? FMLA provides an eligible employee with up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave each year for any of the following reasons. Perhaps your team member had a birth, or maybe they need to care for a newborn child. Also for placement of a team member's child for adoption or foster care, to care for an immediate family member who, for example, could be a spouse, child, or parent with a serious health condition, or they may need to take medical leave when the employee is unable to work because of a serious health condition. So how can you help us protect the company? If you have a team member requesting time off for any of these circumstances, once again, please make sure you bring them to HR so that we can go ahead and determine their eligibility and of course what steps we need to take next. Some of the impacts of potential violations are investigations by the Department of Labor. There could be some lawsuits, and of course, there could be some sort of financial impact based on the type of violation. Lastly, let's discuss the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Americans with Disabilities Act prevents us from discriminating against qualified individuals with disabilities in job application procedures, hiring, firing, advancement, compensation, job training, and other terms or conditions and privileges of employment. Keep in mind that this could be very sensitive as well. When we think about how you can help us protect the company, if you have somebody that is requesting some sort of accommodation, or if you have a big process in which you may have different applicants and you have some kind of concerns, please come and bring those to HR so that we can address what is going on and see what options we have. If you have any doubts, please visit us in HR. Don't try to make any kind of accommodations by yourself, as this could potentially violate the ADA. Be mindful that some of the impacts of these violations could be a potential fine of up to $75,000 for the first violation and $150,000 for any subsequent violation, as well as the potential for lawsuits. So, in conclusion, keep in mind that we are going to operate our business abiding by the laws. And it's not just because they are laws, it's simply because it's the right thing for us to do. These laws, among others, protect our employees. Still, we must understand that, as I said at the beginning of the training, if we follow these laws, they will protect us as an employer and they will protect you as an individual. So again, lean on us in HR for any questions you may have or additional details you may need about these laws or any other laws, and we will gladly help you out. Thank you for your participation today.